Okay, a few more things from the article here. Obi-Wan is a broken man at the end of the prequels is the language that Kathy Kennedy and Deborah Chow and Ewan McGregor used to describe him at various points in the article. They talk about that. He's a broken man. And this is like, I guess part of what the show's goal is to kind of bridge the gap between the Obi-Wan Kenobi at the end of the prequel trilogy, who's this broken man. This is specifically from Ewan McGregor here. He says Obi-Wan is lost. He's a broken man after what happened with the Jedi Order at the end of episode 3, but also what happened with Anakin, that he lost him to the dark side. He feels an enormous amount of responsibility for that and guilt. And then the writer, Joby Harold, says when we last saw Obi-Wan in the prequels, he was very emotional. There's a passion to him. And then when we get to him again in A New Hope, he is the Zen Master. That was a story I wanted to understand. What had happened to Obi-Wan between the guy that Ewan had brought to life and the guy that Sir Alec Guinness brought to life. So, especially considering some of the other stories that have come out this week and some talk about like the show and the direction it's taking, I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I think it's cool to have that verbalized, I think, because there is like, there's I think there's like the big question of like the necessity of this show, and like the just purpose, and like the thematic purpose. Like, is it just to cash in to like bring back some fan favorites, or is there like an actual story in there? So I've been kind of like running that through my head and like thinking about like what are the differences between Obi-Wan at the end of Revenge of the Sith and him at the beginning of A New Hope. And like, for me, I kind of never really needed that filled in. Um, there was that, I have it on my shelf because we, I think we made a pact to read it like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
when this was like rumored, the Kenobi book,
Mm-hmm.
and that came out and people were like, whoa, this is cool. We get the story between, and like, you know, I was like, I don't know if I really need that though. And, it was like EU and everything, and I was like, I don't know, like it kind of like I can connect the dots in my head like pretty easily. um but the like the more I think about like some of the like subtle stuff, you know n- I think something about Alec Guinness in A New Hope is he's very weird at the beginning. He's an extremely strange man, and I think the kind of like strangeness that you can only get from like living in isolation in the desert for many years. But like he's also just like very, you know, in tune to the environment there. And then I think the comment about him being like a Zen master, kind of thing, that you know which I know was like kind of George's intention with the prequels. I mean, starting from Phantom Menace was to use Qui-Gon to kind of inform the person that um Obi-Wan becomes, because I think Obi-Wan in A New Hope is more Qui-Gon than he is at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Mm.
Um, like he's pretty wise by the end of the prequels, but like he's not, like he's not ready. He's not like ready to die in the way he is in, um, A New Hope. And so I think leaning into some of those aspects of the story could be really, really cool. And I think there is actually a story to tell there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think I feel like it does work as is, prequels to original trilogy, and I would agree as somebody who's super super excited for the show. But I would agree that like especially early on when it was like, oh, well, we might do an Obi-Wan movie or an Obi-Wan show. I certainly kind of felt like um, like the character's pretty fully realized to me, and I don't feel
Hmm.
like there's any kind of like continuity problem or anything between the prequels to original trilogy. And I always just assumed he's out there in the desert and he's doing his duty, and it's lonely and it's boring, but that's the sacrifice he's making to protect Luke Skywalker. So from a character development perspective, I like to like I feel like this is a good perspective. I think it makes sense, like, hey, he's really like the worst thing that could have happened to him is where we leave him in Revenge of the Sith. Like
Hmm.
that's essentially the worst. I mean, every Jedi
Hmm.
is basically, is dead except for like all the other ones they keep finding now. But like other than that, all the Jedi are dead. Um, and he had to almost murder his best friend, so it's like that's a very dark place. And so I do think it's interesting to say, well, that's where we left him, like that's where we're going to pick him up in this show. But there's going to be some development here that's going to get him from that place of being very broken to being at least a little more at peace by the end of the show. And I don't know what like plot wise that looks like, but I'm interested to find out. But the other thing too is like, I guess me being a teenager and in my 20s and whatever it was, my whole life, I guess, thinking about him out there on Tatooine. It's like, yeah, well, he's there protecting Luke, and that's what he does, and that's it. But I think obviously this show is going to present a situation in which Luke's in a little bit of danger, or Luke being discovered. There is a danger that he will be discovered, and it makes sense that over 20 years of him watching over Luke, there'd be some drama, there'd be some conflict, there'd be some danger, and even that alone is, I think, kind of worth exploring to me. That sounds like fun, and
Hmm.
an interesting story to tell. So, but I guess all that being said, that it won't. It sounds like, anyways, it won't just be like, hey, this is a compelling plot because Luke almost gets caught and then he doesn't, or whatever. It's also
Right.
they're looking at how do we grow the character and develop the character through that story too. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I think it
It
all sounds
it
good.
definitely increased my excitement and hopefulness
Hmm,
for the show. Like that, like those comments there, in
good.
particular, definitely made me more excited.
Nice.
More so than the trailer, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting. Well, that's good.